everybody. Welcome to the Daily Dose. This week, we're talking about that feeling of being unsettled. Those things in our lives that disrupt or interrupt our lives and leave us wondering, how does our faith in God call us to respond when those disruptions really train wreck things in our lives? We're asking, how does a life of faith give us peace and direction when things feel unsettled? Now, unsettled is not a desirable place to be. It's not good for our minds, it's not good for our bodies, and I don't think that that's where God wants us to be either. And today I specifically want to wonder with you, how does God help us move from an unsettled place of arrogance to a place of humility? So what do I mean by arrogance? Well, you might describe it as pride. And I'm not talking about that feeling of pride after you've accomplished something. If your kid makes that free throw that wins the basketball game, you should be proud of her. If you take a picture of a sunrise over the lake and then you frame it for your wall, you can be proud that you captured that artistic moment. But I'm talking about the pride that shows up as an unspoken podium. You know, at the Olympics, where the person who wins the gold medal stands on the upper podium, the person who wins silver and the other one who wins bronze are next to them, and then down on the ground are all the rest of us, everybody else. The unspoken podium is a little bit different. The podium in the Olympics, of course, makes sense, but the unspoken podium that I think of is what happens in our hearts, in our minds, when we think we deserve something more than somebody else. When we place ourselves on top, looking down with contempt or somehow feeling superior, we can all think of encounters with prideful or arrogant people, because that feeling of superiority might start as something unspoken, but it easily seeps into our relationships. There's an imbalance of power, and the arrogant person wants you to know it. So what does God say to us in our arrogant moments? Well, I love this part of Paul's letter to the Philippians, where he's writing to them, and he says, "Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded and having the same love, being one in spirit and one of mind. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others." Paul's talking about relationships, person to person, or whatever type of community you might live in. Maybe it's a relationship with your family or at work, maybe your friends. Because think about it, we don't come to arrogance on our own accord by just looking in isolation at our accomplishments. It happens when we compare ourselves to others and then somehow put them in a lower place than ourselves. But what if, as Paul is reminding us, we start from a place of humility? When we're feeling unsettled by the need to compare the size of our home to our neighbors, or the type of vacation I take to the vacation the random person on Instagram takes, when someone has a different political stance than I do, what if that unsettling part within us wants to say, walk yourself up that podium and look down at those other people? It says, from this vantage point, you're right and they're wrong. But humility? Well, from there, we don't focus on the comparison. We recognize differentiation. We see that God created each of us as different people, that my friend or my coworker, he's unique and has things to offer the world just like I do. And I think when Paul says, value others above yourself, I think he says that because when we do that, when we call out the accomplishments or maybe even the characteristics of another person, that pretty soon we start to look out for those other people too. We grow curious about the interests of others. And I think our relationships become deeper and more diverse when we aren't stuck on that mountaintop, on a self-declared podium, looking down at people. And I think it'll leave us feeling less unsettled, and we'll experience even more of God's love for all of us. Thanks so much for watching The Daily Dose. We would love to have you subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Maybe share it with a friend, invite someone else to watch along with you. Thanks.